Hey guys, welcome to the episode. I wasn't even going to do an episode on this, but I had a look on YouTube and there was no other sort of tutorial of it. So we're going to install one of these, a Lone Star winch. Now, not planning on doing a video. There's lots of photos. This is probably the worst edited video I've ever done. So enjoy. I spent a lot of money today. So I've never actually done one of these before. Not a good quality one anyway. So I'm going to do an install on this. So this is a Lone Star GX-1. Probably the best brand of winch you can buy locally. You can buy a wiring kit that comes with it as well, but this is everything that comes in the kit. Just a standard. It was about $1,700 and includes the solenoid, the switches, a circuit breaker, the mounting kit, and some big heat shrink. I also purchased a Lone Star bowsprit and a Lone Star roller. So I've taken the circuit breaker and the switch out of the little stainless plate that it came with, just so I can get a better idea of where it's going to go. So I've used this plate as a stencil, and now we've got a pretty good idea of what needs to come out. For the cutting, well, now we've drilled out these. That's so when we cut it using the multi-cutter, just stop any water getting in the wood, giving each of the screw holes a little bit of a smear. Cool. So we're going to look at the wiring up of it now. Lone Star, they sell a wiring kit themselves, but it's extremely overpriced. I think it's about $300, and the lengths will never be quite right. So I've elected to make my own. Now these cables, they're thick gauge. They're 4 AG, they specify, and they're going to be up in that anchor well in the salt, and there's a big length of them. So this is the sort of system that will drain your battery over time. So I definitely want it isolated with the rest of the boat. I really don't recommend just hardwiring it to the battery. I'm just going to carefully sneak this existing loom so I'm going to tee into my main isolator here, and luckily it seems to have room to bring it out the side here, the positive arm of it. There we go. So that's in place. Now I'm going to move to putting a big conduit over both of them and running them up to the solenoid. Okay, so that's the whole length of it in the conduit. Now I used 7 meter. I got 7 meters of cable all up. I really hope that's enough. So consulting the diagram, the main positive and negative, they don't go straight to the solenoid. The positive actually goes to the circuit breaker first. So it's not just a circuit breaker for like a winch overload, it's a circuit breaker for any short circuit ahead of this, which I like that idea. But if I didn't look at this, I wouldn't have figured that. I want to get the length of these perfect, so they're not loose or floating around anywhere. So I'm going to give them a little mark exactly where they go, up under there. Let's pray that's right. So next up, I'm going to put these big terminals onto these wires. Now, there's a special tool that does this. I don't have it, and it's very expensive. So this is what I've always done. Yes, it's not the right way, but it's one of those things that works. It works. So strip off a bit of the end, as you usually would. Get a pair of vice grips or anything that'll hold it. Any kind of clamp will do. Now, you want to angle it up. Feed our terminal down. just normal solder. I'm going to get lots of heat into it. So when it's hot enough, we can feed solder down through that little gap. So they aren't the prettiest, but they work. Get a big bit of you want the heat shrink with the actual glue inside it as well. We'll let that do its thing. There we go. So that same process, I've just done up this little bridging wire that runs from the circuit breaker across to the solenoid. So that's in now. Next bit is these two switching wires that run from the switch to the solenoid. Now, I probably should do them in black, but I didn't have any black. That's them there. They just activate the solenoid. I'm guessing that they're black on the diagram because they earth out the solenoid as opposed to sending power to it like a relay. So they're both on now, and they go to the switch. So I've just turned the isolator off. If everything's according to plan there, when I push the switch, I should hear the solenoid engage. Let's see. Whoop, yep. Up, down. There we go. So I've cleaned out the anchor well. In my case, I had to sand it back. It was a bit of a pain. And I really clearly marked up the best sitting spot for it. And I'm just going to drill one hole through from this side and then get it even from the other side. So what I mean by that is, now I've got that hole through, I know approximately where it sits, and I can get this perfectly level and use it as a template for the holes. So with this all sanded back and dried and cleaned, I'm giving it some gel coat, some flow coat, so time to clean it down. All right, so we've got our flow coat mixed up. I'm gonna go for 2 coats of it. All right, I've got 2 coats of flow coat down. This heat, they flash off very quickly, so we're ready to bolt the winch in. So this is a good example of where water could potentially get into the core material, which we don't want, because in this boat it's just wood up the front. So a really good coating of a good RTV silicone is advised. I think Sikaflex is good. 3M will always be my favourite. And we got exactly the same on this backing plate. That was stressful. Getting those plates sandwiched, getting them lined up. I didn't record much of it without making a big mess. That's all good now. Okay, so I've just done the final 2 big terminals there and hitched them up to the solenoid. I'm going to pass the cables through up in the top right corner here, under the shelf. I picked a bit that's pretty much the same size as the conduit, so it should make a decent seal. So the main power wires, they're tucked away really nicely up under here. So for the joins actually up in the anchor well, which are just 2 stripped wires joining together, you need to use these. And these are a bit hard to get the solder into using that trick. So I just drill 2 little holes in them to feed the solder in. One on each side and another one there. So it actually doesn't matter what polarity you end up putting these in. You can switch that over just by swapping the switching wires on the solenoid. So you can see our behind dash wiring is looking a bit different now. The next episode is on redoing all that. And that is the final positioning of the Lone Star relay and system. We officially have a working winch. So there we are, all finished, plumbed in, chained up with the Lone Star roller and a Lone Star bowsprit. I've used a Saka number 2. I think they're really good. As usual, my videos are very behind time, so consider this a 1-year review, a 1-year operation review. And as you would expect, it has given me 0 issues. Lone Star seem to do their own chain and anchor, their own chain and rope combos. To me, there's just something about them, they were just too thin. The gauge was just too small. I know it was 800 kilos braking strength or whatever, but I just didn't trust it. So I went with I think it's an 8mm, a 7mm chain and some 8mm rope. As you can imagine, with a drum that small, there isn't all that much room on it. So in hindsight, I would have gone with a GX-2 because I think I've only got about 7 meters chain and maybe about 25 meters rope, and I've needed a bit more at times. But apart from this, Lone Star.